George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation. We're here with Syracuse Mayor Ben Walsh to talk about some of the things happening in the city, get an update on a couple of projects. Mayor, let me first begin by talking about City Hall being lit up in blue and the horror that is going on in Israel. Tell me what your thoughts are.
George, I think like most people, just seeing the images and hearing the descriptions of what happened uh, following the attack by Hamas, it was just horrific. And I felt that it was important that in that time of great loss and sorrow, that the city of Syracuse send love and support to the people of Israel. And so we decided to do it by lighting up City Hall blue and white. And again, my heart breaks for them. I'll say I understand that this conflict goes back very far, thousands of years. And as the mayor of the city of Syracuse, I'll be the first one to admit I don't, have a full understanding of the history and the nuance of the conflict. I know Palestinians have suffered as well as a result of this conflict, but the reality is what happened a few days ago was horrific. And again, we wanted to make sure that the people of Israel knew that we were grieving for them and with them.
We did see in DeWitt, at least, that there was some vandalism on at the Jewish Community Center. Are there, and then there has been stepped up security in other cities across the country. What can you say about what our plans are here? If we need to step up, if we're on alert?
Yeah. So following the attack, I reached out to a contact in the Jewish community who helps to coordinate overall security. The good news was their security had already been in touch with their contact at SPD, so the proper protections and precautions were put in place. That communication and contact is ongoing. So we are regularly monitoring everything happening. Of course, we now have seen a number of rallies emerging, of course, all over the world, but including here in Syracuse locally, and so we're monitoring those as well. I've spoken with again leaders in the Jewish community, but also leaders in the Muslim community to take the temperature on both sides. And again, people are hurting, people are angry, but I think across the board, any reasonable person, regardless of how you feel about the conflict between Palestine and Israel, would recognize that the loss of innocent lives is unacceptable, and that seems to be where the focus is. So I'm hopeful for peace, both in the short term in response to recent actions, but in the long term as well.
Yeah, and you talk about long term. That's a piece that right now doesn't even seem even possible, right? Because we're seeing threats come from all, but we're going to pray for that, right?
We sure are.
Because we are people of faith, we're going to pray for that, and we're going to pray for those families and pray for our friends. Like I said, and this is what I think it's hard for many people. We are a community of people of all walks of life and different faiths, and so we're holding that as difficult for everybody. For everybody.
Amen. Yeah. Thank you, George.
So let's talk about a couple of things. You and I were both. I actually saw your presentation at the Monuments Symposium hosted by Carrie Mae Weems on the removal, or is it the replacement of the Columbus statue? And I think there's a nuance in that language, because when we hear removal, we think it's going away, right? So what's the update there? Because I know that you won. The city was successful in its right to remove the statue or replace the statue or move the statue. Okay.
Yeah. Another really difficult topic with a very long history, George. I think some people focused on the controversy around the Columbus Monument here in Syracuse suggest that it's a recent controversy or it's new. The monument has been controversial from the time it was first erected. As I said during the presentation, I am very sympathetic to members of the local Italian American community whose family members were a part of putting that monument up, and I understand that for many it was about facing their own oppression as a community. But I think that the reason we are going down the path that we are on is because we recognize, and I recognize that that the symbol of Columbus, regardless of its local connotations, to many, certainly our neighbors at the Onondaga Nation and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, but all other marginalized groups, that is a symbol of great oppression and colonialism and pain and suffering. And so after years of dialogue circles and engagement, including with members of the Columbus Monument Corporation, I decided to begin going down a path that involves getting back to your words, George, which are important. What I'm proposing, which is still subject to local and state approval processes, is the relocation, the preservation of the monument and relocation of it to a place where it can be viewed by those who value it, but removing it from that very prominent public space, which I believe should reflect the values and the diversity of our entire community. So the goal is to protect, to preserve, not to erase, to tell a broader story, both of the local Italian American heritage and oppression that community faced, but also the broader symbolism of that monument and how it's contributed to the oppression of other people to this day. But again, it's a very difficult issue at a time when there isn't much tolerance for talking through the nuances of these issues, but that's the goal. I always try to be respectful to all involved.
Yeah, I mean, there's two issues that you just brought up that I want to follow up on. The one piece is that from the Columbus community, from the Italian community, they don't want the monument moved at all, right? That's
Right.
where they're at. Okay. And then this idea that we really can't talk in today, right? Today, everything is one or the other.
Right.
I mean, this is where we get to civility and then being able to disagree, but in a way that, okay, I don't see a point here, but it makes sense. I mean, I think for the Italian community in particular, they see it as removing, like you said, erasing something that they built and that they want to preserve. And yet you're suggesting maybe, okay, let me ask you this. So if you go up North Salina Street, right, we have Little Italy. Would it make sense for the monument to be placed in Little Italy as the gateway to the Italian, once very Italian? It's much more different today than it was years ago. But might that be an option?
Well, so it's something that has been suggested before, George. I don't think it's the best option for the reason that you stated. And one thing that I wanted to make the point earlier about, the fact that this controversy has existed for a long time. One thing that was reinforced at that forum was that the issue of monuments is an issue that communities across the world face and have faced for the entirety of humanity. These are not new issues, and monuments have come and gone, and oftentimes do reflect a snapshot of time within a particular community. And as you stated, the area that we call Little Italy was at one point, a prominent neighborhood of the local Italian American community. There's still vestiges of that, but it is arguably our most diverse neighborhood now.
Absolutely now,
as the welcoming neighborhood for many new Americans. So I think it's important. Again, I am in full agreement with the Monument Corporation. We cannot and should not erase this history. We should tell this story because it's an important story to tell. But we have to we have to make sure that our public spaces and our monuments evolve and continue to reflect the current day values and the current current feelings of the community. So again, I think you can preserve the monument, but I think you can relocate it. And speaking of controversy, even those that are generally in support of the direction that we're taking, and you may have heard it at the forum, part of the what I believe is a compromise is suggesting that as we relocate and preserve the monument, that we continue to focus and center that space on celebrating local Italian American heritage. There are some that feel that we should be, erecting a monument for the Onondagas or other marginalized groups. And again, we think that it's important that the local Italian American communities still see that space as a place that represents them and celebrates their history. But again, I think that there's a way to do it that doesn't at the same time symbolize a very painful part of our community's history, and that's the balancing act we're trying to strike here.
Mayor, may I ask you this as from a personal standpoint or from your leadership style, how difficult a decision and process has this been for you?
Yeah, it's interesting, George. It is. It's weighed heavily on me because I know that there are good people that the decision that I made, the path that we're taking, brings great sadness and pain to that. The goal of this process is to heal, and I think long term we can still do that. But it's hard. I have there are family members and friends that disagree with this approach, but that's the nature of this job. And again, I've always tried to do it by being respectful and treating everyone with dignity and being honest and truthful. I think that's an important part of the equation. But I also think it's important to note, George, that whether it's the Columbus Monument Corporation or any other stakeholder, none of these groups are monolithic. The Columbus Monument Corporation doesn't speak for the entirety of the Italian American community, just as I don't speak for the city of Syracuse, the Irish community, or any other
Well,
group.
you kind of do speak for the city of Syracuse.
Well, but there are certainly folks that I represent that disagree with me. That's
There you
the
go.
point.
All right. Okay.
But again, it's so I'm a big boy. I don't lose any sleep over it. Because I make decisions based on what I believe to be in the best interest of the city and the people I serve. But I don't take it lightly. That's for sure.
Appreciate that. Talking with Syracuse Mayor Ben Walsh. So we connected not long ago at the Dream Summit, speaking around diverse communities, and Eli Smith and El Java, Abdul Kadir, bringing something to Syracuse, bringing nationally recognized and locally recognized entrepreneurs. You and I had a chance to sit in a very powerful conversation. What was your takeaway from that summit and the whole idea of what they're trying to bring to the city?
It was inspiring for me. I talk a lot about as we grow as a community, especially with this Micron moment that we're facing. The theme of my State of the City last year was next level growth. We as a community are moving to that next level. But the only way that we're going to be truly successful in doing that is by ensuring that everyone in the community benefits from these investments. And that's kind of what the Dream Summit was about. It was acknowledging that that unless or until everyone is successful, our work isn't done. But the cool thing about that summit is it brought people both locally and globally that are successful, that have made it to that next level, and were willing to share their stories about how they got there, and help others get there too. And so again, it was inspiring for me. It was motivating, and again, I think a really important ingredient as we look to again hit that next level.
So speaking of next level, a couple of projects that happened this week. The new city center opened downtown. The former Sibley's building, now a new office space. I know that was a big deal.
really big deal. It's one of the challenges in this job. These things we spend years on them, and then they happen. It's like, okay, done with that, on to the next thing. But I really did try to soak in that moment yesterday, because that project was more than a decade in the making. I mentioned at the event that when I was working for Mayor Miner, I wrote a grant, probably 2011, 12-ish. When the city still owned the garage that was attached to that building. So, Sibley's closed in 1989. The building had a kind of second life as an office space, but has been basically dark since 2009 or 10. And it has taken a lot of effort, a lot of collaboration, and a lot of money to get it to where it is today. But man, it is beautiful in the way in which they designed it, carving out that open space in the middle, creating kind of this dynamic public space, and better connecting Salina Street with Armory Square. It's a transformational project, and bringing all those new employees down there too is going to be a boon for businesses all around there. It's a big deal.
Yeah, and I think, is it Hannah Hoyt that's moving downtown?
Yeah, Hayner Hoyt, who constructed the project, they moved their offices downtown. Huntington Angle, one of the biggest defense contractors in the world, located. They've got over 100 employees down there. CX Tech, homegrown tech company, moved from the burbs into the city. So again, just reflects where we're going in the new economy. And again, I think all of those employers recognize that if they want to be competitive in attracting and retaining talent, being in the center of the city is a competitive advantage. And that's a story we want to continue to tell.
And you got the Chimes building project that's about to go underway. Say more about that.
Another one, these are massive, anchor buildings in downtown that have been vacant for a long time, and among the last few that are vacant. But credit to the Allen Foundation, which did such an incredible job with the Salt City Market. They didn't want to rest on their laurels. They saw an opportunity with the Chimes building. They've acquired it. I toured it last week. Just a beautiful historic building, needs a lot of work. But again, what's so cool about their model is getting back to that inclusive development. The residential development that they do, they break it down by market rate, affordable, basically three different levels of affordability to make sure that it's accessible to people at all income levels. They're looking to incorporate some good dynamic ground floor uses. So it's just going to help us to continue to extend the growth and the investment that we're seeing downtown, connect some of the dots down further south to where JMA and the Syracuse Community Health Center built their new buildings. And but again, do it in a way that really tries to lift everybody up with it.
The Syracuse Surge Link project, which is a project to provide Wi-Fi. Oh, by the way, the Chimes building is the building right across the street from Salt City Market.
That's right.
You might notice I call it the 500 building, but if you will.
I remember that.
So the Surge project, free Wi-Fi for residents. Just how does that work? Like, who's eligible? How do they get the Wi-Fi? What's the story?
Yeah, another project many years in the making that we were able to officially launch just a few weeks back. We were able to use some American Rescue Plan Act funding to do it. We put out an RFP, ended up connecting with a company out of Geneva, not too far from here. Community Broadband Networks, I think is the name of the company. And they have what they call a fixed wireless system. So it's kind of a combination, a hybrid between, fiber connecting directly to the home and wireless. It essentially, we have these fixed points throughout the city that connect the internet through Wi-Fi signal right into homes, but it's a private, secure network. You have to sign up for it, but there's a federal program that allows income eligible people to essentially subsidize the cost of the service and make it free. So we're focused on the census tracts most in need currently right now, focused on the south and west sides. It is we're going to serve about 2,500 households out of the gate, but the goal is to scale this. Hopefully, if it works the way we think it's going to work, citywide. And again, it's all about connecting people to the internet. We know that a quarter of our population don't have access to the internet in their homes, and that leads to so many other barriers. So by getting people connected, we're connecting them with job opportunities, with educational opportunities, and it's a big part of our Syracuse Surge strategy.
So how do people get that?
So they can go to Surge Link, SyracuseSurgeLink.com. We have our own website, and you can log on there, sign up for service. We're also going to be standing up a storefront where people, because obviously not everybody's going to be able to get on that website, can go in and sign up. So we're just in the early stages of it, but we've been also doing outreach, going to different community events and signing people up as well. But right now, the best way is just to get on SyracuseSurgeLink.com and confirm your eligibility and then get signed up.
You recently hired a new police accountability officer, and a recent rally forum has questions about that, right? They don't know what the person is supposed to do. They haven't really heard anything. And I know that I know when going way back when Governor Cuomo and you came on and talked about this, put in for police reform, and there were some things that the city was responding to, but there's still questions about how are officers being held accountable, and what is the role of the police accountability officer who was recently hired, Jawad Rashid.
Yeah, so we hired Jawad. His title is Chief Accountability Officer. He is located in the chief's office with Chief Cecil, and his deputy chiefs is considered part of the leadership of the department. Ultimately, what led to the creation of that position was that we have been investing significantly in police accountability and reform. I had issued my executive order relative to police reform back in 2020. Shortly thereafter, Governor Cuomo issued his executive order, which required municipalities to come up with police accountability and reform plans, which we did. So with all of that came a lot of work that needed to be done immediately, and then work that needed to be sustained and continued and built upon. And early on, we were really doing it kind of as a team between Deputy Mayor Sharon Owens led the charge, worked very closely with the chief's office, with me, with the Corporation Counsel's office, but we wanted to make sure that it was sustainable. And so by creating that new position, that's somebody in Jawad that wakes up every day thinking about police accountability, how we can make sure that we're delivering on our promises. And again, to your point, maybe identifying some of the gaps that still exist in areas where we need improvement. But it's I think hopefully a sign to folks that this wasn't just a flash in the pan for us. This is something that we started, frankly, from the moment that we had community meetings that led to the selection of Chief Buckner. So before the murder of George Floyd, and has continued after. So always work to be done, but we've accomplished a lot, and I'm proud of it.
And the other question that came up was, so you have the Police Accountability Office, but you also have the Citizen Review Board, and the feeling is there's a big investment over there, but not in the Citizen Review Board, and the support that agency needs in order to do its job. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, fair point. We have to tread a very fine line with the CRB. Ultimately, it was created by the Common Council, and the Common Council does have oversight over it. But I do have board appointing powers over some board members, so we certainly have a role to play. But we also, have to keep our distance. We have to respect the autonomy of the board. And so, in the most recent budget, there was some additional funding committed to the CRB. And again, when I came in to office, the relationship between the CRB and the administration and the police department was essentially broken. I think we've mended those fences, and we've developed a good working relationship, but we understand the CRB still has certain frustrations. And again, we're committed to continuing to work with them to make sure that they're able to do their job and we're able to do ours.
We appreciate it. I know it was short on time, but I do have to ask two more. So do you have time for two?
Sure.
All right, so here we go. Obviously, residents are concerned about safety, crime, and what they perceive going on in their neighborhoods and community. What do you say to them?
It's all relative. So if somebody doesn't feel safe, that's a problem. And there are far too many people in our community that don't feel safe. I pride myself on being data driven. When you look at the data, the good news is violent crime is down by about 10% year over year compared to the same time last year. We're about even compared to our 5-year average. Property crime has spiked. We think that there's a number of driving factors there. Issues around poverty, substance use, mental health. This issue with stolen vehicles that has afflicted the entire nation. The TikTok Kia challenge, all of that. It's really gotten crazy. And there's the responsibility and accountability needs to be spread among all parties. But again, whether it's a property crime or a violent crime, if it's impacting you directly, it's a problem, and it's one that we're committed to working on. So again, some excuse me, signals of improvement in some areas, but not in enough. And until everyone feels safe in the city, we've got work to do.
Your political future. So don't tell me, well, George, right now I'm focused on being mayor and I haven't thought about it. You've thought about it. What are you thinking about?
I'm trying to force myself to think about it. I've got, a little more than 2 years left, but they're going to go fast. And so, for my family's sake, I do need to think about what's next. I'm term limited. George, I love this job. I really love it. And I want to maximize the next couple of years and get the most out of it. And so I am going to be primarily focused on it. But to your point, I do think about it, and I have to think about it. I'll tell you, politics, that public service, I love. The politics is draining, and it takes a toll, not so much on me, but on my family. I've got 2 young girls that, selfishly, I like the idea of them having a time in their childhood where their dad isn't in elected office. So, that leads me to look, I think, towards other opportunities outside of elected office. But I also, again, love public service. If an opportunity came along that I thought I could do more good at, that's ultimately what it's about, I would consider it. But I can tell you for sure, I'm not actively considering any office right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if I don't, if I find something else to do first once I'm done with this job.
Well, let me just ask you about the obvious question. You have a legacy of service in your family, right? Grandfather, your dad was a congressman. What about Congress?
Not particularly interested in it, George. Certainly not now. I would never say never, but I enjoy being able to myopically and selfishly focus on the city of Syracuse. This is my hometown. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. I also think that going from being an executive to being a member of a legislative body would be a difficult adjustment. My grandpa Walsh said as much when I talked to him about it years ago. Again, not particularly interesting to me at this point. We'll see what happens in the future, but I really love being mayor.
So, well, you won't be mayor in 2 years.
That's right. And I don't think I'll be in Congress either, George, if that helps.
All right, there you go. All right, we just want to get that for sure. And I get it, because I'm just listening in between the lines. If you're as serious, you said about, I want to be here with my children for right now, or I want to spend some more time with my family, not more time, because you spend time with your family.
I do. I spend a lot of time with my family, and that sounds kind of cliche, but I did not suffer from my dad being in Congress, so I am confident.
You didn't want to imply that either, right?
Right. I'm confident that I could do it. It's just a question if I want to do it. And to your point about public service, what motivates me is and it sounds cliche and cheesy, is doing good. Being in elected office is one way to do that, and it's the way that works for me right now, but it's not the only way. So I'm sure, the one thing I'm sure of is I will find something where I feel like I'm making my community and making the world a better place. But it just may not be in elected office.
It's been a long time since we had a chance to chat on the air, so I'm glad you had a chance to connect. Lots more issues to talk about.
For sure.
There's the cannabis, there's all that stuff going on. But I'm gonna let you go because you want to spend some time with your family. So there you go.
That's my next stop. George, great to catch up, and happy to do it again anytime.
All right. That's Syracuse Mayor Ben Walsh here on Inspiration for the Nation. Take care. Have a good rest of the day.